Our first post that we're going to talk about today is the sequence post, Hypocrisy or Akrasia. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
And I think, if I recall correctly, like the word Akrasia was already in the community, I guess, in the air, where people had introduced it before, I think.
I think Aristotle coined it. Or Plato.
But it was not like, it wasn't a commonly used word. I had never heard it before the rationalist community came around.
I took philosophy classes, so
So
I took it the wrong way. I got it in the wrong order, probably.
Yeah, it probably came into the rationality community from philosophy.
Oh, yeah. In the post, he mentions one of those philosophers. The ancient Greeks used the term akrasia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In any case, the idea that you know what you should do and you don't because of weakness of will.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, I want to lose weight and be attractive, but donuts. We've had this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is the first post. Well, I know this is the first post that actually defines the term akrasia, and I think it was already being talked about a bit. But this post is a good introduction for someone who hasn't heard it before, and just basically says what akrasia is.
And how it's not hypocrisy.
Right.
Or is it?
Yeah. So you were, just before we started the episode, you mentioned that you thought Robin Hanson had a more extreme definition of hypocrisy than most people.
Yeah, but they go on to kind of define what they're talking about in a nice way. Although the fact that they're arguing over definitions of words is kind of funny. Yeah, so I was thinking that hypocrisy was just saying one thing and not doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like if my parents tell me not to smoke, but they both smoke. And they say it's bad for you, you shouldn't do it between puffs on a cigarette. I thought of it in the ad hominem, tu quoque, the hypocrisy argument, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that they're not doing what they're saying doesn't make them wrong. You know, Peter Singer could be, as selfish as Donald Trump, but that wouldn't make his moral arguments wrong. It would make him a hypocrite, but it wouldn't make him wrong. But I think they have a more strict definition, which I think is fine, of like moral hypocrisy, saying, we were talking about religious people earlier, the gay bashing super church or mega church pastor who gets caught with his pants down doing blow off some male prostitute's dick or something, right? So this happened in Colorado Springs a few years ago, right?
I think you generally do them like off their abs or something. Like doing blow off a dick would probably be hard. I mean, obviously it would have to be hard.
It would have to be hard. Anyway, so
yeah.
my colorful language aside, that would be hypocrisy in the sense that they're talking about. They're saying this is a moral failure, except when I do it.
I've always, I don't know if it's my religious upbringing as well, and like how Jesus loved using hypocrite as an insult, but I always also gave it a moral aspect. Like if your parents say don't smoke because it's health advice, then it's just akrasia. But if they're like giving you the impression that smoking is a morally bad thing, which I always got that impression from my parents, then it would be hypocrisy if they smoked. Like if smoking has a moral judgment behind it, like it's dirty or it shows weakness of will, all good people don't smoke and they are smoking while they tell you that, then it's hypocrisy.
Yeah, to be fair, the post then goes on to explain hypocrisy versus akrasia and does it in a way that makes the distinction, I don't know, more palatable and actually easier to understand what phenomena we're talking about if we use akrasia or hypocrite to describe a behavior.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, Eliezer says, if I really believe that I ought to exercise at least 3 times per week, but I don't always do so, is that properly termed a hypocrite? The term akrasia, meaning weakness of will or failure of self-control, seems more appropriate. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's basically it. I've always, I feel like a douchebag saying this. I kind of have gotten the impression for many years now that the rationalist community overuses the term akrasia or akrasia to as an excuse sometimes
To justify all the shit that we just still do despite us should be knowing better.
Right. I'm like, every now and then it's all right to just say, you know what, I'm a crappy human or something and I'm doing something like giving it the term akrasia almost seems too noble sometimes.
Because you're using a fancy Greek word. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so you're explaining like why you didn't do your work. It's like, well, because I was playing Red Dead Redemption for 4 hours.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that was akrasia. That was weakness of will. It's not a problem with me, as a person. A moral character is a weakness of will.
Yeah. And
like,
I'm like, dude, you wanted to drink and play video games.
Yeah.
I feel ya. I've been there too a lot.
All you have to do is admit there's nothing wrong with that once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Right.
As long as you're not like missing
know.
bills or you're getting losing your job or something because you're playing too much video games, then go nuts.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I think that it's generally correct, and I also don't think that people are like, oh, it's okay that I was drinking and playing video games because it was just Akrasia. It's like people, when they say that, it's not like they're giving themselves a free pass. I think it's just an actually true definition of what was going on in their brain. They probably sat there drinking, playing video games, and every 20 minutes thinking, I should go do the dishes. I should go walk the dog, and then they felt bad about themselves afterwards.
Story of my life.
I think that's generally how that happens. There's, I think, very few people that
That's me like 5 days a week.
don't feel bad about like doing behaviors that they know they don't really want to do, or that like are actually like short term shooting themselves in the foot.
Okay, then I was being a douchebag then.
Well, maybe just maybe like mismodeling them, because I think if you're consistently making the Akrasia like thing, or not excuse, but explanation for your behavior, and like you notice it and acknowledge it but don't do anything about it, then what's the point? Like, so I tend not to feel bad about my video game binges, assuming I'm not putting off important things, right? Yeah, I don't have much to add to that, other than why did they start this debate in the first place, Hansen and Yudkowsky?
Oh, well, I assume it was because Hansen was doing his typical economist revealed preference thing.
Yeah.
Where people are like, well, they obviously don't really care about their health. They're just signaling that they care about their health and they're smoking.
Right.
And yeah. And all the answer was like, it's just weakness of will. It's not necessarily.
Is Robin Hansen human?
I love Robin Hansen.
No, me too. He's amazing. I think he's great. But it's funny because maybe I don't know how he has this ability maybe to see through the bullshit. Maybe he doesn't live with the bullshit. Maybe it's some quirk.
He's always wearing the one ring from the Lord of the Rationality.
Right. Yeah, so that's the distinction. I think maybe the reason that it's in this at all is because it's a valuable thing to notice about, like, why aren't you doing the thing that you want? Well, it's not because you suck. It's just because maybe it's a weakness of will sometimes. Yeah. And you can train your will, but you can't maybe train your moral character as easily. I'm not really sure what they're getting at there, but
well, it's also, if you're going to be using that term, it's good to have a post that defines it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a sort of sequence of things that is supposed to be starting from bedrock.
Wait, is that why it's called the sequences?
Yeah.
I've made the effort to intentionally choose the Akrasia argument in the past. I didn't define it that way, but I went around for a while kind of having this like dark view of the world going, yeah, people suck, the life sucks, and I kind of wanted to improve after a while. So I started an experiment where I was just giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like, for example, I was driving for many years. I was commuting to college for 5 years, and it was like 45-minute drive both ways. And then for work, it was the same distance. And just like on a highway, and people cut you off, and New Jersey drivers. So when people would cut me off, I would be like, what a terrible person, what a dick. And it would just make me miserable. And I kind of tried to change my mindset where I would give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, they probably cut me off because they didn't see me, or because maybe they've got an emergency, they might be speeding somewhere because something really bad's going on with them, or they're really stressed out or whatever.
I went through the same sort of transformation.
Yeah.
And I think it was around the time, I don't think that this kicked it off, but there's a great distillation of half of that attitude, which is called Hanlon's razor.
Uh-huh.
Never attribute to malice. That was just equally explainable by stupidity.
Yeah.
So it's like someone who cuts you off, they could be a malicious asshole, but more than likely, they're probably just stupid. And so, or they're a bad driver.
Yeah, they're not paying attention.
Yeah, they're not
they've
paying
got
attention.
other shit going on.
I was using stupid generically.
I feel like you're not giving them that much of the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, I was like, that's not quite what Jess was going for.
But it's hard to be mad at somebody for like not noticing something. If you felt like they're trying to run you off the road, which sometimes they are, then they're they're dicks
I
or
think it's
trying to hurt
almost
you.
never that anyone's actually trying to run you off the road. No one cares that much about you to try to run you off
Well,
the road.
I'm not saying that. I meant to say like not never, right?
Right.
And like there are people who like they'll see you and then scoot up so you can't merge. Like I mentioned last episode, where difficulty entering the highway.
Yeah,
Right.
people
It's
definitely get road rage.
Yeah, so some people are being assholes. Don't get me wrong, but most of the time they're probably not. They're just not aware. But there's another thing that helps me get over like that same sort of like people suck attitude of inferring their moral character from their actions. And what's that? The fundamental attribution error, where you're snippy with somebody, at getting coffee or something because you just had like the worst day ever. You were in 2 car accidents this week, and you've got rocks in your shoes.
Yeah, your kid's sick in the hospital, and
yeah, all this crap, right? And then so like you're snippy with the barista or something. And then a week later, your life's great, and then the person in front of you is snippy, and you're like, that person must be a fucking dick. I'll bet he kicks his dog. I'll bet he, I'll bet he litters. Like, you just start referring a bunch of mean things about their personality.
Probably the opposite political orientation.
Exactly.
You guys are mean.
I'm saying that this is what humans do. I didn't coin the phrase fundamental attribution error. This is the perception that people, or this explanation that people see. We see our history.
Really, a lot of people like that. I mean, I've met one or two people like that, but
I think
it's
everyone's
my-
like that to some extent.
I always thought it was my impression that that is the exception. That generally
Maybe.
people are assume the best of others.
Maybe
Oh,
you're a
no.
saint. Yeah. Because don't get me wrong, I don't walk around angry people now, but I did, especially as a teenager. Like, why is everyone being so mean? And it's like they're not. They're just doing what makes sense to them in their moment. But that's not, I think, an intuitive realization for most of humanity.
Yeah, understanding the elephant in the brain actually does help. I think I don't know. At first, it seems like the people are all like Homo economicus is not the right word, but just trying to maximize stuff for themselves, and they're lying to themselves all the time. And at first, it makes like you feel really angry about everybody, but then like once you take the moral judgments out of the picture, it starts being like you can actually give people more of the benefit of the doubt because you understand that everybody has these flaws in their brains, and it's not that they're intentionally like trying to be malicious towards you. You can explain things away through brain bugs too. I started doing the accepting the Akrasic explanation because I realized I was making myself miserable. And what I noticed the more I started doing the opposite was if you go around thinking that people suck and that life sucks, people don't want to be around you because you're depressing. So then you don't get friends, you don't have like romantic relations, you miss out on like job opportunities, and then life does suck. And then you're like, it's all those other people's fault. So like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and you get the other benefits of giving people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes people are jerks, but like most of the time they actually do have something terrible going on in their life, or they've got some kind of extenuating circumstance, or they were just not paying attention. And people like you if you're the kind of person that extends the benefit of the doubt. You see more of the good side of humanity.
And like everyone's got stuff, and that's kind of what you were saying too. That
Yeah.
this isn't like necessarily just an insight from like rationality or psychology or something. The observation that like everyone's got struggles that you're not aware of is been noticed and marked down by tons of people throughout the ages. But being mindful of that, I think, keeps you from getting annoyed at people a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I really quickly at the end here, I noticed the post called me out, which I thought was really impressive that he managed to write this 10 years ago to call me out today. Who says that people who claim to care about truth and then deceive themselves really don't care about the truth? Why not say they really care about the truth, as is right and proper, but they aren't living up to their own morals? And I know on more than one occasion I've said that, like, all you really need to do to get people to accept the scientific method and or reject religion is just make them care about the truth, and then they'll find out on their own because they want to know the truth, and that'll motivate them. And I'm like, that sounds like maybe I am wrong.
In your defense, I think you probably formulated that during your years of arguing with religious people, and where the sentence "I don't care if that's true or not" is used a lot, right?
It wasn't used very often with the people I argued with.
Okay.
I tended to argue with other people on forums who were also there for the intellectual sparring.
Because I've definitely seen, I guess, just your lay religious person especially, where it's like,
Yeah.
fine, I don't care if it's true, it makes me feel good, or
Right. I've run into that
I
a
hope
few
it's
times.
true. And so, like, to many people, truth isn't that high of a value, but
just like trying to hammer into love the truth more into people is not going to be the answer, I guess.
I think it would work on a large number of people. Again, anyone who's saying they don't care if it's true or not, it gives them hope. Something else, like, it doesn't have to be religion. It could be like an alternative therapy for a terminal illness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't care if it's been shown not to work. It gives me hope. Is something that I think your average, mostly sane adult could say, right?
Yeah. I think it's not that they don't care about truth, it's that they care about it less than having that hope that this alternative therapy will cure their child, or that they'll go get to live forever in heaven or whatever.
I don't know. I think if someone's child has cancer, they really do care about curing that cancer, and they care about the truth in that regard, but they just don't have the tools already to know that this homeopathy is bullshit.
Yeah, or that they've already tried all the standard care and they have to resort to the homeopathy.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they wouldn't be giving them any sort of alternative medicine if they didn't expect it to work. So, like, they care about what's true. They just their map is wrong, right?
Yeah. It's really hard to come to someone when their kid is dying of cancer and telling them that this is bullshit and this is why. It seems like this is one of those things that you should work on before the cancer happens, because once cancer's in the picture, you're a real asshole if you're being like, hey, about that homeopathy.
It's the same thing with religion. Say someone's kid has just died, and then they're, you can't go up to them at that point and be like, oh yeah, but like, what, you should really care about the truth. God doesn't exist. Your kid's gone. That's like a bad time to have that argument.
Yeah, I remember about people trying to get me, again, when I was back in my religious debating days, of like, well, would you, like, talk somebody out of their religion on their deathbed? And I'm like, no, I'm not an asshole. What could they do with this new information if they're going to die in 30 minutes? Nothing, right? I'm not gonna ruin their last minutes if they were making a bunch of wrong decisions, and they were like, 19. They're going to decide, do I want to go to college or do I want to go off and, do whatever, some pointless religious thing. Not saying all religion stuff is pointless, but you get my point. That would be a good time to have that conversation, but not at the point where you're ruining their life. Or ruining, yeah, I mean, you could retroactively ruin someone's life in their last 30 minutes, right? So forget that.
I don't think you'd ruin their life, but you'd ruin the last 30 minutes of it.
But they would, yeah, you ruin the last 30 minutes, and they would look back and say my whole life was pointless. If you somehow managed to convince them that this whole thing was bullshit in their last 30 minutes, then like they might have said, I regret everything, and then die,
I don't think
right?
they would ever really do that, because there's still everything else in their life.
Well, we talked about how hard how that transition can take more than 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So,
alrighty, on to, do you know how to pronounce this?
Tsuyoku Naritai.
yeah,
Do that again?
Tsuyoku Naritai.
Tsuyoku Naritai. Neat. Okay. The next episode, Tsunoku Naritai. I want to become stronger. This is explaining the fundamental growth mindset. Oh God, I just used that term of rationality, and that people want to be better.
cool. Sidebar. Why don't people like? I remember growth mindset was popular for like 5 years, and then it
Yeah.
wasn't. Why?
Didn't it not replicate or something? I don't know how you could test that. I think there was something where they did some battery of psychological tests and showed that it didn't actually work.
All right. What's growth mindset?
Growth mindset is the idea that I can always get better, stronger. I don't have intrinsic.
Limits?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's
It's like
a sense.
I can't do this because I'm too dumb. It's like I can't do this now, but I will get better.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I think
So-
I'm thinking of something other than growth mindset that didn't replicate.
No, that's what it was, because you
It
were
was?
supposed to not tell kids that they have intrinsic limits. It's more like you can still.
Oh, you can
learn
be
this,
anything
can
you wanna
better.
be.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so like that seems like a deepity, right? In the sense
Mhm.
that like one reading of it is just trivial and obvious, and the other half is like profound if true. But like, so
I think that's why it became sort of a joke eventually ish.
well, but on the one obvious side, like I'll never win an Olympic gold medal for deadlifting,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm almost 30 and I can deadlift right now like maybe 9 pounds. So that's just never going to happen. But to say that it will never ever happen, because I'm a transhumanist. I think that one day we'll all be able to, maybe not win gold medals, but I'll be able to compete with today's gold medalists, no problem. Maybe I need to think about this whole growth mindset thing more and not keep us down that rabbit hole for too long. But
Yeah, I think they rejected it too strongly.
I think it's like anything that becomes too popular too fast,
Yeah.
that after a while there's a backlash.
I think it's just, that hipster backlash
Yeah.
going on.
Anyways,
So Eliezer says, the Orthodox Jewish belief that all Judaic law was given to Moses by God at Mount Sinai. After all, it's not as if you could do an experiment to gain new halakhic knowledge. The only way you can know is if someone tells you, who heard it from someone else who heard it from God. Since there's no new source of information, it can only be degraded in transmission from generation to generation. I still thought to myself, Torah loses knowledge in every generation. Science gains knowledge with every generation. No matter where they started out, sooner or later science must surpass Torah. The most important thing is that there should be progress. So long as you keep moving forward, you'll reach your destination, but if you stop moving, you'll never reach it.
I love that. I cut out for brevity, but he said that like this was a thing that occurred to him as a kid. Even though I'm all religious and stuff, at some point science is going to be better than God.
Yeah, he was like, I wasn't a full-blown atheist yet, but I did have this thought that kind of planted the seed.
well, in their defense, I mean, he was, already, I guess, an above-average logical person as a child, but those two things are obviously true, right? If science is learning more and the Torah is learning, and we're getting less from the Torah, I'm drawing lines with my hands that are, I'm not drawing good lines. One's supposed to go down, one's supposed to go up, and So, what's the message?
The message, it's called Tsuyoku Naritai
Tsuyoku Naritai.
because it's a Japanese term meaning I want to become stronger. He points out that it's much more prevalent in Japanese media than American media, and specifically I'm thinking about anime because I see it a lot in anime, but I think that's a good point. We don't have it as much in America.
No, it was the entire theme of the anime Gurren Lagann. If anyone's familiar with that one, humanity was like living in this dystopia where everyone lived underground and they were imprisoned by these like animal creatures, and then like the end of the show was them like two galaxies fighting other galaxies. Like it was this like theme of growth that was just so ridiculous and over the top that it was really adorable.
But I mean, it's a theme in a lot of anime.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like Rurouni Kenshin, he needs to be strong enough to beat Shishio and goes on his, little quest to find his true strength.
Yeah.
Inuyasha, which is like 190 episodes, which I dropped off after like 120 because every season was exactly the same, where they'd find the bad guy, and then he would, hurt him, and then the bad guy would run behind some MacGuffin wall, and then he's not strong enough to get through the wall. So then the next season he goes off, gets strong enough to get through the wall, and then he gets through the wall, hurts the bad guy again. Guy goes behind a different wall, lather, rinse, repeat for like 6 years. I'm like, all right, it's all the same. You're never gonna get the stuff.
Yeah, Attack on Titan. A kid starts out like not knowing a lot, but really wanting to avenge his family and
kill all the Titans.
Yeah, and protect his society. So yeah, he just keeps learning and getting better and has this drive to become the person that can defend his society.
Yeah.
And I stopped watching that too because it started becoming just episodes and episodes of filler. I'm like, I can't do this. What's wrong with you?
Just
animes?
like a pretty strong undercurrent of Japanese culture. You see it also like not just in anime, but like you'll see it in martial arts and even in like, I don't know, I like to watch the NHK and they always show like there's a part about craftspeople. So like somebody making clay pots. And you'll watch this, it's basically the Japanese BBC. For some reason, I can't think of what the acronym is, but they have the English version of it too, and you can stream it from their website. They have some pretty neat programming, and this is like one that I really like is like they follow craftspeople, and so there's like a guy making clay pots, but like he's trying to become the best person who ever made clay pots ever. And like he's already achieved mastery, and Eliezer talks about this too. It's like you could say Tsuyoku Naritai if you're a new Go player that wants to ascend, or if you're getting pretty good but you still want to be like in the top ranks, or if you're already the best person alive but you still think you could do better.
Yeah, and in that sense, that kind of growth mindset's true. That like, I don't want to belabor on that point, but there's always the capability to say, I want to do better, even if you're the best. And even if you really suck, you want to suck a little less. I think, you made the point about just like lifestyle stuff, I mean, I've seen documentaries of people making like kitchen knives, and that I didn't see the whole documentary, but that sushi one.
Oh, Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Yeah, like the mentality in Japan or in Japanese culture is different in that like here it's like I want to be good enough to make the most money in my field for my area or something. I don't really care about being the best. I just I want to be, not necessarily, but that's maybe a more common attitude. It's like I don't really care about being the best at this in the world or the best at this even in my city. I just want to make, a very competitive salary or something.
Yeah, Tsuyoku Naritai I think has a kind of a leg up on maybe growth mindset, or maybe like this was the problem was that people were kind of mischaracterizing growth mindset. But you kind of think of again like the skinny kid who wants to like become an Olympic athlete and it's just never going to happen because of genetics. Whereas I think Tsuyoku Naritai is kind of comparing yourself against who you were, which I think is more of a rationalist value.
I like that distillation a lot. That sounds perfect to me.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm comparing myself to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm comparing myself to me of a month ago, and I want to be stronger than him. And in a month now, I want to be stronger than me now. Right? I like that.
Speaking of anime, there's the anime called Mob Psycho, and there's like this one aspect of it that I really enjoy. It's this ridiculous show about a kid with psychic powers, and he sees ghosts and stuff. He's like this skinny, weak kid otherwise, and he's not popular. And he decides to join the body improvement club at one point because he has a girl he likes, and he realized that no matter how good he is at psychic stuff, she's not going to like him unless he's got a good body.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes this really funny thing of like, it's this team of like the most ridiculously drawn jocks who are like running laps and lifting stuff, and then there's like this ridiculously weak kid kind of lagging along behind them, tripping over himself, like unable to like lift a marshmallow on 2 sticks. And it's like people are like, why are you doing this? You're like this great psychic. You could, I don't know, one character who's this other great psychic who he beat in a fight. It's like, you could rule the world with your power. And he's like, well, yeah, but I couldn't, like make that girl notice me. So I thought that was really funny, and it's just really adorable. I recommend this anime a lot.
What was it called?
Mob Psycho. It takes a lot of weird anime tropes and kind of like turns them on their head. That's what this writer is good at. It's the same person who did One Punch Man.
Oh, cool.
I've definitely heard of that. I saw the first episode. I don't know what I'd get into if I got set down for 2 seasons of it, but it sounds interesting. No, that sounds fun though. The first one you mentioned that I still forgot the name of again.
Mob Psycho?
Mob Psycho.
Mob Psycho. Okay, there it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of that theme running through it too, where various characters are trying to become better for like bad reasons versus good reasons. So it gets a little bit more into that.
That reminds me, back on the post though, that the message isn't, I don't know, don't worry about being the best. Just if you have this drive, which I think a lot of people do, you want to be just better. Mm-hmm. And that's always attainable, basically, within physical limits, etc. But
it's almost like it's emphasizing a particular virtue for people who are virtue ethicists. that this is a great virtue to have, the will to become better.
Yeah, you could say it's something that gives life meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of like, and you could do this with anything. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to hone my rationality skills or, be a, an amazing doctor. There's people who've beaten Dark Souls on the Guitar Hero controller, right? And like, they're not doing that for money. They're not doing it for, probably not for the prestige. Maybe there's some prestige with that community, but they're doing it to see if they can, right? That might already be the best, but like, all right, now I wonder if I can do it blindfolded. I saw a video of a girl beating Pontiff Sullivan, one of the bosses in Dark Souls 3, blindfolded.
Cool. Off audio cues?
Yes, but the audio cues to me aren't that obvious. Certainly, you don't know where you are or
because
the
you
way from the
haven't
enemy.
done it like every day, all day long. for
Exactly,
years.
but I watched the videos and it was fucking amazing.
I love seeing stuff like that too. It's so, I don't know, like there's sometimes I watch videos and be like, humans are the best, when you see, you know, like somebody do a ridiculous skateboarding trick. Or
Yeah, those humans are awesome videos.
yeah, it was that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, the humans are awesome videos. Like it's just it's adorable.
There's a subreddit called Humans Being Bros. So like most of my news feed is like positive things like that. I just keep the negative things in there, but I have it like at least 3-1 on good stuff. And it's like videos or clips or whatever of people, like this guy walking past this homeless dog, and he's like, there's this kind of like scrap of like cloth in the street that's big enough, and he goes and gets it and he lays it on the dog, and it's like a security camera that, you know, just nice little thing, a little warm fuzzy. Sometimes you need warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
The essay post says Tsuyoku Naritai.
Tsuyoku Naritai.
Tsuyoku Naritai is the driving force behind my essay, The Proper Use of Humility, which we did a few episodes back, in which I contrast the student who humbly double-checks his math test and the student who modestly says, but how can I ever really know? The student who double-checks his answers wants to become stronger. He also goes on to have another cool anecdote from his religion of birth. Each year on Yom Kippur?
I've heard it both ways.
Okay. An Orthodox Jew recites a litany which translates, we have acted shamefully, we have betrayed, we have stolen, we have slandered, and so on. As you pronounce each word, you strike yourself over the heart in penitence. There's no exemption whereby, if you manage to go without stealing all year long, you can skip that word and strike yourself one less time. It does not end, but that was this year, and next year I will do better. This ritual bears a remarkable resemblance to the notion that the way of rationality is to beat your fist against your heart and say, we are all biased, we are all irrational, we are not fully informed, etc. Take no pride in your confession that you are too biased. Do not glory in your self-awareness of your flaws. If your ignorance is a source of pride to you, you may become loath to relinquish your ignorance.
It's perfect. Yeah, I've got nothing to add.
He ends it with, the important thing is to do better, to keep moving ahead, to take one step forward. Tsuyoku Naritai!
There you go.
Yeah, you nailed it.
All right.
I like this one in the context of the previous post, because it's an interesting thing to contrast against. The other one was kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt, saying like, you know, they're not doing these things because of Akrasia. But then this is, you can kind of, you know, ask why are they not Tsuyoku Naritai-ing.
Maybe they are, and it just takes a while. You don't get to become Super Saiyan in a single episode. It takes 100 episodes of filler.
I don't know. What I like to do is to give other people the benefit of the doubt, but like hold myself to a high standard, and I don't expect other people to do it. It's nice if they do. There was a quote from the previous post where Eliezer had said, what would you do if someone came to you saying that, like, I have all these flaws, I've done all these things, but I want to become stronger, please help me. And I feel like that's the point where you would turn that person towards the Tsuyoku Naritai philosophy. But I do kind of wish that it was more of a value of our culture. I think that, like, it's kind of, Japan is like a high conscientiousness culture, and it's neat that they value that. I think, like, in America we tend to kind of idolize rock star types, and we also tend to think of it as, like, it's weird because we're supposed to be, like, the country that thinks that anybody can be whatever they want, but I think that, like, when you actually talk to Americans, they tend to betray more of an idea that people are kind of born with something or not.
Yeah, they had that spark. That's why.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people and have like expressed that dichotomy in real time, where it's like, okay, sure, Martin Luther King Jr. had this spark of, you know, care for, compassion for humanity and whatever his vice is, but I don't think that detracts from the good things he did. Someone else was born the poor child of abusive drug addicts or something, and they have less opportunity to be Martin Luther King Jr. And yet the whole, again, American, what do you call it, dream is that anyone can do anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh no, that person can do it too. And it's like, well, can, like, within the limits of like physically possible, sure, but, and this isn't really, I guess, tying to the difference between our two cultures. It was just something with that mentality trips me up, right? And that's a whole other thing, and it's obviously, I'm not being very coherent about it, so.
It's hard to be coherent about, because, like, there's a sense in which I think both of these ideas are correct. Obviously, I'm giving people the Akrasia explanation. I think it's true. Like, I generally think that in the last post, somebody linked to a Brian Kaplan article where he was talking about what if there's an alcoholic who just decides to go to the bar after work every day and gets smashed instead of going home to his wife and kids. Now, maybe it's true that he actually likes alcohol more than his wife and kids, but you can't say that without suffering social consequence. So he gets to, maybe go to some AA and like walk around saying how he feels really bad for his behavior and he wants to change, and then he gets social sympathy and he gets to keep drinking. So that was like kind of a point against the whole like akrasic. Like, there's social consequence to admitting your true self or your true beliefs, and there's you get like socially rewarded, I guess, for saying the things that society thinks you should say. Like, I should exercise, I should diet, I should do my homework. Sometimes maybe people are just kind of hiding that they don't actually want to do those things, and just saying like, and there's a sense to which I do think that that's probably correct. But I also think that the hypothetical alcoholic probably does actually feel bad about what he does. Maybe he has a really hard life. Maybe his job really wears him out. Every day he has to make the choice. Do I go to the bar and feel like instant gratification, I feel better, and have a few drinks? Or do I go home, fight with my wife, like change my kid's diaper, take out the trash, walk the dog, and feel miserable?
And the thing about, like, in this case, a drug dependency is that, like, it becomes less and less of a choice every day, right? Because, if you're in it and if you have a dependency, then, like, when you decide not to, it's not just where you stay, like, where you are. All right, I'm going to go home and be, like, only as miserable as I am. You're going to get more and more miserable throughout the day and following days because your body needs in quotes, really, really wants whatever it is that you're addicted to, right? It puts in mind the super stimuli that, the people who died playing Diablo 3 and whatever Dota 2 or whatever games it was, they probably didn't make the decision like, I'd rather do this for one more hour than live out the rest of my life. They just had a weakness of will and I guess lack of attention. It's obviously super rare, so it's not like if this was happening to 1 in 200 gamers, there'd be more of a panic about this.
Yeah.
It does happen to people though.
Yeah.
Like, you hear about crazy behavior in casinos and whatnot. Like, there's some people that just have such strong addictive tendencies that they will completely like ruin their entire lives to continue pushing that button.
That's a really good point. That gambling is just as it's different kind of stuff than I'm assuming drug dependency, but
it's similar.
But yeah, that feedback of like I've almost got it, and that rush when you win is awesome, and I can totally see how that's super appealing, or rather common.
Yeah, we all have varying levels of that too. It's not like there's a few people that just have superhuman willpower, like Elon Musk, I guess, and they're in the other like top 1% in the other direction, but the rest of us, like, the majority of people are somewhere in the middle of that, floating around.
Yeah.
Okay. For next time, we have Tsuyoku versus the Egalitarian instinct.
Oh, that sounds like kind of what we're talking about.
Uh-huh. And statistical bias, in quotes. We will post links to both of those on our website, thebayesianconspiracy.com, and you can find everything else that we talked about there as well.